Hey everybody. Um, See how fast I can get through these few points while you're looking into the beginning pieces of your text media in Unit 5. Um, you should be seeing my Word document, which I've opened just to kind of put in a few ideas um, that came up while I was grading your analysis. Um, and if you just turned in one that it looks like you made some of the same mistakes, please don't worry about that. All right, let's go. I'll try to make this concise. The first thing that I pointed out in many of your papers and your feedback is part of formal writing is avoiding the use of first or second person pronouns. So just as a refresher, first person pronouns are I, me, we, that's the plural first person, or us. And then you have all the possessive versions of that, which is anytime those pronouns own something, then it's mine or my item. Or if we as a group own it, it's our object or it's ours. So those are first person pronouns, including the possessives. Second person is you and anything built off of the expression you. You, your, and yours. So those are the possessive. Incidentally, plural second person. If I'm talking to you, I'm using the second person. If you are more than one person, it's still you. There's no plural form of you. So if you're in the South, y'all might be the plural form of the second person you. But that's just an abbreviation for you all. So I'm pretty sure there are two reasons there why you wouldn't want to use that in a formal paper. One, the abbreviations are a no-no, and the other, you're not supposed to use second person. Reason why is formal writing is not supposed to address the reader, and it's not supposed to address yourself. It's supposed to be written in the third person, and so you're making statements about insights that mankind ought to know, and they should be delivered in a way that doesn't highlight the fact that you're talking about yourself or that you're talking to someone else. So I know that's, if you think about argumentative or persuasion, persuasion seems like a personal act. So it's very hard to stop ourselves from writing like we're thinking. And if we're thinking in terms of what we believe and what we think and what we think that other people ought to think if they agree with us, it's hard to avoid that. So the fact of the matter is, formal writing doesn't include those references. All that, even down to an imperative sentence. If some of you remember, there are different kinds of sentences. Declarative is just a statement. Interrogatory is a question. But an imperative sentence is a command. So you may think, well, I didn't use the word you in that imperative sentence. Shut the door, please. That's an imperative sentence. The subject of that sentence is the word you. It's just understood. So even an imperative sentence has an understood second person pronoun. So formal writing does not include those kind of direct call to action or commands, in addition to the other ways that it avoids first or second person pronouns. Okay, so you got that. It means you got to think of other ways to say it. Sometimes the word one is like a neutral pronoun, the third person, if what I want to say is, you don't have to, you don't have to do, so I mean, if I just wanted to say some universal truth and I was saying it to someone, if I want to make it impersonal, I could say one does not have to do drugs to have a good time. Okay, so instead of saying you don't have to do drugs to have a good time, if I just say one does not have to do drugs to have a good time, I've made that third person. It was second person, and I've made it a little bit more formal. Third person. One is you use the pronoun one is one way to do it. Another way to do it would be, people don't have to use drugs to have a good time. You can render it into kind of a broad, plural humanity third person. This is another strategy. So there are several strategies, and as you kind of fiddle with it and try to recraft a statement, you'll kind of run into other ways to do it. I would say it is worthwhile when you're writing formal essays when you get done with a draft, to read through it one time and just look for those pronouns. That's all you're looking for. Not looking for misspellings. You're not looking for anything but, did I slip and use the expression, did I say that Jackson revealed to us her theme? No? If you did, you need to pull that us out, because that's first person plural. You need to just say Jackson revealed her theme. So don't bring it in terms of first person. It's not what we should gain from Jackson's writing. It's what humanity should gain from Jackson's writing, or what readers should gain from Jackson's writing. So I hope that makes sense. Symbolism. A lot of people are using that as one of your devices. I would say if you're going to go there, it's pretty tricky. You're automatically dropping down another whole level of meaning and saying, you're not saying that, hey, look, I found symbolism in this story, so that proves that symbolism is in this story. You would have to show that symbolism is in the story, and that symbolism is being used to promote the theme that you're talking about. So if envy is your theme, the symbolism should revolve around envy. In other words, these devices in literary theme analyses, if you're looking at literature and you're claiming that a device is being used to push a theme, then in some cases those devices are pretty straightforward. So if their setting is, if the theme is gloomy, and so the setting is in turn gloomy to help promote that gloomy theme, then that could work. If you're saying symbolism, what symbolism is objects, colors, names, even just words that actually, between the lines, they mean something other than what the words mean. So they're a stand-in for an entirely different concept, often an abstract concept. So if that symbolism you're detecting if the abstract concept symbolized is not the same as the theme, then you're not really proving that the symbolism is being used to promote the theme. You're just showing that there's some symbolism going on. So just some thoughts on that. Okay, real quick, last name first. On your reference list, APA or the bibliography and Turabian, either one of them, your authors are listed last name first, and then they're alphabetized. So I think one of the example papers had these Brainy quotes. They had them listed first name, last name, and so it was alphabetized by the first name. I don't think that that's the way. If I'm looking at my APA style guide and my School of Religion style guide, I'm pretty sure both of the reference pages have the last name first on an author. In the Turabian footnotes, it's first name, last name, but that's down at the bottom, and that's in order of when it appears in the text. So I'm just talking about the end page where your bibliography starts. Just remember to alphabetize by last name. What else? Just a little point. Remember that in the APA style of parenthetical citation, the citation is concerned with identifying a work. If you name the author, then you put the date of publication after it. The story Everyday Use, it had the date of publication, but it was at the end of the story. At the beginning of the story, below the author's name, it said B 1944. That means Alice Walker was born in 1944. She published the story in 1973. So any citations that you have, if you put in B 1944, this is irrelevant information, and at least for APA style guide purposes, what they want to know is this story that you're citing, it was written in 73. The person, Alice Walker, she was written in 1944, and as in that's when she entered the world. But if you're talking about Everyday Use, it's 1973, and so anytime you reference that broadly and not specific to paragraph, then you would just be putting that publication date in there. All right, look at this. Quotation marks, in punctuation, and commas. Some of you all are having problems with this, and this is important for any kind of writing that you do, okay? First things first. You'll be pleased to know that American punctuation in quotations is very straightforward. You always put the punctuation inside the end of a quotation. So Walker showed courage when she said, comma, quote, read my story, period, end quote, right? The period comes in before the quote. You see right there. Give me a nickel, comma, quote, he said, comma, quote. At the end, so every quote, they're going to have a pair. You rarely have an odd number of quotation marks. But the second in the pair that closes it for the time being, whether it's a comma or a question mark or anything, it comes inside. All right? See that period there. Give me a nickel, he said, and then I'll buy a gumball. Period, quote. So in America, the punctuation is always tucked into the end. Everything. In England, they do a little bit differently, but I'm in America, and so I say we'll do it as the American standard is, and that is punctuation goes inside with one exception. When you have APA style citation in parentheses, you take the end punctuation and you pull it out, put it on the other side of the citation, like this. Walker showed courage when she wrote, comma, and I made this up, so you won't find this anywhere, but this is an example of how to punctuate this. Quote, I dare you to read my story, end quote, parentheses, paragraph 77, in parentheses, and then the end punctuation. The exception only counts for end punctuation in an APA citation. So commas, for instance, will still all just get tucked in. Even if you have a paragraph citation designation right after, and then you continue on with the sentence, then the comma will stay tucked in inside the quotation marks. The only time you pull it out and put it on the other side is if you're ending the sentence, and so you need the end punctuation to come right after the parenthetical. So Turabian users, you just tuck everything in because you're in America, and what you have is you'll have a period, a quotation mark, and then a footnote, right? So if you're quoting material that has quotation marks in it already, you turn those into single quotes within your outside set of regular quotation marks. Here's an example that I made up. In a brilliant piece of dialogue, Jackson wrote, comma, there's two sets of quotes. There's a regular quotation marks, which is the double, and then there's a single quote. Then that's an apostrophe that I put in there just to confuse you. Why don't I do this? We'll just change that. I am not playing the lottery, comma, single quote, Jane said with trembling lips, period. Single quote, oh yes you are, Missy. End single quote, her mother replied, period. End double quote. Now, if you need to do a parenthetical citation because you're in APA, then you would take that in that little period, and you would take it on the other side. Let's say that came from paragraph 132. And then you put your end punctuation in. If you're in a Turabian situation, then you would do that, and you put your superscript, you put your number. You'd have to bump up the superscript, put your little footnote there. All right. So note, the most important thing about this example is this one set of quotes within which are all of Jackson's words. So Jackson wrote all of this, including he had some quoted material. She had some quoted material, and then those you have to render into single quotes. And that way people know when you're moving in and out of quoted quotes. So you have two characters in this quote, two characters that are saying things, and then you have attributions to, what happens when they're not saying something. So Jane's lips are trembling. Her, and these attributions, her mother replied, Jane said. All right. Okay, editing notes. I'm going to leave that for another day. No, I'm not. I'm going to go ahead and tell you about it. Editing notes. If I make this symbol, or if you see that in your text, whatever this line covers, and then the little curly cue, that means delete it. So if I want you to remove the word "the" up here, I would mark through and then go whoop, like that. Sometimes you might see where I just strike a single strike like this through a capital letter. That means it should be lowercase. If you have a lowercase letter and it should be capitalized, you would see 3 tiny lines. That's pretty much, I mean, there are several. This one, there's a new paragraph sign. If you see something like that, it looks like a P. Actually, that looks like a funny R, but basically you get it. This would be inserted somewhere when you need to have a paragraph break. Oh yeah, the caret. If I think you need to insert something, whether it's a letter or a word or a phrase or even a whole sentence, I will signify where you need to insert it by using a caret, okay, which is underneath where it goes, and it points to where exactly it goes. And then above it, I'll put whatever content goes in there. So I might say awesome. Well, maybe a shorter word. So I might say all editing notes. In this case, what if I wanted you to add the word all, capital A, but because it's the beginning and editing no longer needs to be capitalized, I might strike the E. So you would just insert that, drop the E down to lowercase, keep on rolling. So, okay, I hope that makes sense. Lastly, templates. It's totally appropriate to use templates. Some of these format, I think somebody else did this already. I think it's pretty smart. It's not an act of plagiarism to use the formatting, the document formatting of somebody who's already done it for you. So you just have to verify that when you put in your own content, that it takes the formatting that is already in there. By this, I mean, if you take one of these example papers, it's already set up Times New Roman, 12-point font, 1-inch margins all the way around, double spaced, etc. All those formatting rules are already built into it. If you were to open that document and then just start replacing every bit of text with your own text, then effectively you would be obeying the formatting rules for that particular kind of writing. That's what a template is. It's just it's like a model that you can pattern after by actually writing into the document your own content. So I think that's totally approved to do that. You just don't, obviously, if any of the content is from somewhere other than your brain, you have to cite it and say where it came from. But the document itself, the formatting guides they're established in your style guides, and you just have to create documents that look like that. So if there already is a document that exists, if you've got a paper that you did right, then why not open it up when you're doing your next paper and just replace all the content with the new paper so that you've got your format set up. Just a thought. Hope you have a good unit. We're over the halfway mark, y'all. The home stretch, sort of. We got 3 weeks of ramping up toward this argumentative essay. And I'll be getting you feedback on your most recent assignment here very soon. Thanks a lot.